Remarkable transformation. How a homeless boy gave a surgeon's daughter the gift of walking. Lucas crouched behind a dumpster, sifting through leftover food. The pungent scent filled his nostrils, but hunger gnawed at his insides, demanding his attention. In the bustling city, surrounded by suits and smartphones, he felt invisible. Somewhere beyond the clamor and chaos, a 12-year-old boy was barely holding on, doing his best to survive each day. He had long ago learned how to fix things: broken toys, discarded bicycles, and even the occasional kitchen appliance. But he couldn't seem to repair the chasm between himself and the world. Days blurred into nights as he scavenged in alleys, ducking under rough glances and avoiding conflict as much as possible. He carried not just the burden of hunger, but the fear of violence that loomed in shadows. This day, however, fate took a twist. A flyer announcing free community workshops fluttered in the breeze, promising new opportunities for people less fortunate. He hesitated, heart racing. Would he even be welcomed? The risk of rejection was like a weight on his chest, yet the flicker of hope urged him to go. Inside, Lucas found more than a place to escape the streets. It was a room filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to his cold reality. As he repaired a wheelchair that had seen its better days, something caught the eye of a man wearing a lab coat, Dr. Thompson. The orthopedic surgeon's brow furrowed in disbelief as he witnessed the young boy breathe life into what was once abandoned. Impressive, yes, but Lucas's heart raced with the knowledge that he was once again seen, and it terrified him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Dr. Thompson wasn't just impressed, he was desperate. His daughter Emma was confined to a wheelchair, her once vibrant spirit snuffed out by an accident that left her broken both physically and emotionally. Lucas began visiting Emma in the rehabilitation center, where her laughter was now a distant memory. Despite their contrasting worlds, an unlikely bond formed as Lucas shared the tenacity of a street kid, while Emma opened the pages of novels that sparked wonder in his otherwise muted existence. But as they grew closer, the looming specter of Dr. Thompson's financial troubles draped over their budding friendship like a storm cloud. Lucas discovered whispers about the surgeon's debt, dark tales of an arrogant rival promising miracle results. The thought paralyzed him with fear. If Dr. Thompson stumbled, if his daughter lost her chance, could he lift Emma out of despair? His mind raced, tangled with questions. Should he take the plunge to uncover the truths that felt buried, or should he protect Emma from consequences? The stakes roared higher. Conflicting emotions churned in his gut. Loyalty battled his instinct for self-preservation. Lucas felt trapped in an agonizing dilemma. He might hold the key to a truth that could either sever or save their fragile friendship. What would he choose? Each moment weighed heavily as he stood on the precipice of a choice that could shatter everything. Would he dare risk it all for someone so different, yet so desperately alike? The warmth of the workshop lingered with Lucas, a sanctuary amidst the uncertainty, but now the thought of Emma loomed larger than ever. He could still picture her tight-lipped smile, the light of hope temporarily dawning when they talked about dreams and possibilities. Yet beneath that veneer of optimism lay an unspeakable weight, one that matched the heavy dread weighing down Lucas. Each visit to the rehabilitation center felt fraught with urgency, knowing how fragile Emma's situation truly was. His mind raced, contemplating the evening whispers he'd overheard in the alley behind the workshop. The surgeon's debts were a noose tightening around their lives, driven by a rival's merciless ambition. Dr. Thompson had put everything on the line for Emma's recovery, and if Lucas could unveil the truth, perhaps he could rewrite their fate. But how exactly would he confront the hidden threat? The anxiety of stepping out of his shadows gnawed at him. The next day, as Lucas wandered the streets, he overheard snippets of conversation among some men lingering at a corner cafe. Phrases floated in the air. Sabotage, just wait and see, and making a name. Each word struck him like a fiery arrow, igniting a spark of determination. He needed to uncover what these men knew. A whirling conflict brewed in his mind. Was it enough to simply glean information, or did he owe it to Emma to act decisively? With newfound purpose, Lucas formulated a plan. He would approach the men subtly, perhaps even masquerading as one of them, an innocent, inquisitive kid. He practiced what he would say in the reflection of shop windows, rehearsing his lines until they sank deep into his bones. As night fell, he found himself crouching near the cafe's entrance, heart thrumming with a wild mix of fear and anticipation. The lighting cast long shadows, and the tension in the air was palpable. Every instinct screamed to retreat, yet the thought of Emma's fading spirit drove him forward. He would have to step into the lion's den. "Hey, you guys!" Lucas chirped, projecting a confidence he didn't feel. The men turned their attention to him, their expressions a cocktail of surprise and amusement. Before he could second-guess himself, he continued, "What's this I hear about Dr. Thompson? Heard he's struggling, huh?" A flicker of interest passed through their eyes. One man, grizzled and scruffy, leaned in. "What's it to you, kid?" Desperation tinged with the thrill of taking control surged through Lucas. He realized in that moment that he wasn't just a homeless boy looking for scraps. He possessed a sliver of power, the power to uncover secrets. "Just curious," he shrugged, keeping his expression neutral. "I mean, a surgeon like that. He must have something valuable to lose." Laughter erupted around him, but he remained steadfast, leaning into the facade. Maybe this was the beginning he needed, a chance to connect threads and weave a tapestry of redemption for Emma. Yet as the men exchanged glances, doubts began creeping back in. What if he was misreading the situation? What if they saw through his ruse? Their conversations about danger and intrigue crackled like electric tension, and underneath it all, Lucas sensed shifting loyalties. In that moment, the stakes grew exponentially, fueling his confusion and igniting an urgency within him. Could he unravel this conspiracy against Dr. Thompson, or was he stepping into a trap where betrayal loomed, ready to snap shut? Lucas inhaled deeply, weighing the fragility of every decision against the backdrop of Emma's fading hopes. The countdown to the truth had begun, and the question remained, would he find the strength to confront the darkness lurking ahead, or would he vanish back into the shadows he fought so hard to escape? The air was thick with anticipation as Lucas stood in the doorway, flanked by the shadows of night. The laughter of the men faded like echoes in a cavern, replaced by the thumping of his heart, an almost audible drum heralding the arrival of a pivotal moment in his life. The weight of his intentions bore down heavily on him. He was no longer merely a bystander. He was now an unwitting player in a sordid game of power and ambition, with Emma's future hanging in the balance. As he listened to the men trade stories, Lucas felt a cautious thrill surge through him. Was this what it meant to step outside his comfort zone? To actively take charge of his fate and, by extension, Emma's? The knowledge that he was now a participant, however small, ignited a flame of determination within him. Yet with that fire came the looming spectre of fear, the fear of failure. What if he miscalculated? What if his probing led to more harm than good, jeopardizing Dr. Thompson's efforts, or worse, Emma herself? "Come on, kid, you think this is a game?" The scruffy man's voice jolted Lucas from his inward spiral. You don't have a clue about what's really at stake, do you? Lucas swallowed hard. He had to deliver a response that didn't give away his trepidation. Just trying to understand how someone like Thompson got himself into such a mess, he replied, masking his true motivations behind an air of innocent curiosity. The men exchanged knowing looks, their amusement morphing into cautious consideration. You shouldn't be so keen on stirring trouble, especially when you don't know what's in the pot, one of them warned, a note of seriousness creeping into his tone. The implication hung heavy in the air, igniting a sense of urgency within Lucas. This was not merely information, it was a warning. Every fiber of his being urged him to flee while he still could. But then he thought of Emma, the fragility of her situation, sending ripples of anxiety through his chest. Could he really walk away without trying to uncover the truth? "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said, fighting the urge to stumble over his words. "I just thought, well, if the surgeon is really struggling, maybe we could help. You seem like guys who know everything about this town. Maybe you could use a hand." The men leaned back, weighing his words, and Lucas sensed the tides shifting. He needed to push harder, to leverage whatever he could glean from this precarious position. "You could use someone on your side. All those whispers, all that talk about what you could do. It could benefit everyone. I know things too, things that could help." A tense silence fell, as Lucas soulfully searched their eyes for any flicker of recognition or, better yet, agreement. Perhaps he had balance on his side, a developing sense that he was more than just a boy grasping at scraps. The more he spoke, the more he peeled away the layers of fear that had restrained him for so long. This was evolution, a fierce clash between his former self and the emerging warrior for Emma's cause. "All right, kid," the grizzled man finally replied, leaning forward with newfound interest. "Let's say you're in. What do you really know?" In that instant, Lucas felt a rush of power. He had crossed a threshold, a turning point from which there was no return. The stakes had changed, and the game had opened wide, with the truth lingering just out of reach. As he dug deeper into the conversation, each new thread tugged at his resolve, revealing hidden strengths he never knew he possessed. Lucas was transforming not just in the way the world saw him, but in how he perceived himself. But yet again, anxiety simmered beneath the surface. Was he, in this uncharted territory, truly prepared for what lay ahead? With every word exchanged, the answers he sought loomed ever closer, yet the spectre of danger thrived like a predator in the shadows. The conundrum remained. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he fall prey to forces far beyond his understanding? His pulse quickened, ready to unearth the secrets cloaked in darkness. This was just the beginning, and he couldn't help but wonder if the journey to unmask the conspiracy would uncover parts of himself he never knew existed. As night surrendered to dawn, he knew he was far from done. Would he be able to seize this momentum and channel it into something life-altering for Emma? Or had he merely opened Pandora's box, unleashing consequences he wasn't prepared to handle? The answers awaited him, tantalizingly out there, yet closer than he'd ever dared dream. The time had come to face the depths of his own resolve. As the men's skeptical visages faded into shadows behind him, Lucas felt a new urgency for clarity. The room pulsed with an electric tension, each second forcing him to confront the gravity of his newfound involvement. He had stepped into a realm painted with danger and unanticipated alliances. The sense of power that surged through him was as intoxicating as it was disquieting. "All right, kid," the scruffy man pressed, an inquisitive glimmer in his eyes. "Tell us what you know." There it was, the question that demanded an answer laced with confidence. Lucas took a breath, unsteady yet potent. He could feel vulnerability creeping in, a betrayal of the resolve he was attempting to cultivate. Yet the stakes were higher than his fear. Thoughts of Emma, her fragile smile, and the dreams pinned on the surgeon's skill propelled him forward. He needed to channel that fear, to forge it into an unwavering determination that would drive his next words. "Well, I overheard some discussions about Dr. Thompson's recent cases," Lucas began, choosing his words as if they were sharp blades to wield carefully. "People are worried about the surgeries he's been performing. Rumors say he's taken too many risks, experiments that haven't turned out well." He paused, gauging their reaction, seeing the flicker of recognition in their eyes. "Go on," one of the men urged, nodding for him to elaborate. Lucas leaned into the moment, pushing through the apprehension that threatened to choke him. "And there's something more. Emma, his daughter, she's been caught in the swirl of all this. The whispers make it sound like he's pushing himself because he's trying to save her, a desperate race against time." The weight of his statement caused the men's expressions to darken. Conversations brimming with laughter had shifted toward grim contemplation. Lucas seized this opportunity, redirecting his momentum. "What if I could help? I know the hospital's layout. I've been around while my mother was being treated. I could gather information, see if there's a way to reconnect him with colleagues he's pushed away. Maybe there's a way to save his career, and in turn, Emma." "Ambitious," the grizzled man mused, his tone a mixture of admiration and skepticism. "But you should know, kid, getting involved in this, it's not without its risks. Do you really know what you're stepping into?" The weight of his words landed heavily on Lucas, pushing him to question his own resolve. He felt a surge of doubt. What made him think he could change anything at all? Yet against that fear was a flicker of audacity, a belief that his actions might just make a difference. He could no longer cling to the boy he had been. He would become the agent of change for Emma, or risk losing everything again. "I'm ready to do what it takes," Lucas stated firmly but quietly. "I see a chance. If I can use the information I have and figure out how to re-establish connections, might it not lead to something significant?" The men exchanged glances, evaluating him like a diamond miner would gauge the glitter of a rough stone. Each scrutinizing gaze tempered his anxiety with a glimmer of potential, amplifying the resolve thrumming within him. "You've got guts, kid," the man finally replied, a crooked smile forming as if a bond had begun to sway into existence. "But it's one thing to have guts, and another to wield them wisely. Watch your back and steer clear of those who turn on you." As Lucas left their company, he felt lighter. Each step he took down the dimly lit street induced a pulse of rejuvenation. This unexpected turn had opened a door to empowerment he had never considered. Yet doubt hung thick as a fog, obscuring his path. Would his newfound ambitions lead to success or betrayal? Was he really ready to navigate the treacherous waters swirling around Dr. Thompson and his daughter? The unknown loomed ahead, electrifying yet terrifying. But more than anything, Lucas felt the overwhelming weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had started on a journey saturated with risk, yet laced with the hope to change a life. As he stepped onto the darker path of this unfolding adventure, Lucas could not shake the sense that the true battle had only just begun. Soon, he would confront the realities of loyalty, sacrifice, and perhaps betrayal, all tied to the fate of the girl whose life hung in the balance. Would he stand strong amidst the chaos, or would he be swallowed by the very game he had chosen to join? Each evening, shadow cast longer, Lucas found himself entrenched deeper in a world woven with uncertainty and expectation. After leaving the men's company, he walked beneath flickering streetlights, mulling over his decision to step into the complex web surrounding Dr. Thompson and Emma. The thrill of purpose, tinged with anxiety, created a turbulent rhythm in his heart. Was this newfound path of empowerment truly his, or was he merely a pawn poised to be sacrificed? He shook off the thought, steeling his resolve. Fear was as much a part of the journey as confidence. As he navigated through the darkened streets, he recognized the vital lessons his circumstances had taught him. Resilience and adaptability were his allies. Each challenge he'd faced in the systematic grind of his earlier life had shaped him, imparting a toughness he had yet to fully acknowledge. He could harness that grit to navigate this unfamiliar territory. Back in the small room he rented above a laundromat, Lucas leaned over his laptop with determination, the light illuminating his weary features. He scoured through hospital reports, notes, and commentary on Dr. Thompson's recent surgeries, piecing together a fragmented puzzle. The glow of the screen reflected in his eyes, revealing a mind sharper than he had ever realized. Discoveries emerged that he hadn't anticipated: connection to colleagues, lingering friendships, and even ethical discussions surrounding his mentor's methods. A flicker of insight ignited within him. The hidden competencies he possessed were the very tools he would employ to engage more deeply in this mission. What had once been mundane academic study became a catalyst for action. A teenager grappling with financial instability was now querying medical journals, grasping for narratives beyond what he'd previously considered in his life. This exploration marked a critical pivot in his identity, transforming the lens through which he viewed himself. No longer just the boy wishing for a better life, but a young man capable of influencing others' lives for the better. Those late nights transformed into early mornings, filled with brainstorming sessions. Lucas began to write down strategic plans, focusing on pragmatic steps he could take to approach Dr. Thompson, a way to not only express concern for his daughter's future, but to align their common interests. Crafting letters, reaching out to former associates of the doctor, he realized he was not just an outsider looking in. He could become part of the solution, representing Emma's voice, amplifying it where silence had grown. Doubt still hovered like a spectre, threatening to disrupt this newfound clarity. What if Dr. Thompson rebuffed his attempts? What if engaging in this quest for his daughter elicited anger from someone as desperate as a father trying to maintain control over his daughter's fate? The risks were palpable, and yet the thought of failure motivating his fear sharpened his resolve. The next step brought him face to face with the doctor. He planned to visit during the early hospital hours, when he could request a meeting under the guise of starting a volunteer initiative aimed at student engagement in medical ethics. The ruse felt both thrilling and disingenuous, yet necessary. Lucas understood that every great endeavor involved some degree of calculated risk. Was he prepared to impersonate confidence when it felt like he was forestalling his uncertain footing? The act of stepping into that hospital corridor would be the ultimate test of his transformation. As dawn approached, Lucas stared into the mirror, a boy on the precipice of a man. He saw flickers of determination alongside a core of vulnerability, both battling for dominance in his psyche. Could he lean into the doubts? It would take courage to face the doctor, to stand tall in defense of Emma, and to risk rejection in the name of hope. With a deep breath, he rehearsed his pitch while determinedly readying himself for what lay ahead. The stakes had never felt higher, nor had the potential for personal growth loomed larger. As he prepared to leave, one thought echoed loudly. This was more than about saving Emma. It was about stepping into uncharted territory and discovering who he could truly become in the process. And with that resolution tinged with both fear and excitement, he opened the door, striding out into the world, ready to face whatever consequences awaited him. Descending the stairwell, a singular question reverberated through his mind. Would he successfully bridge the gap between Dr. Thompson's fears and the burden of hope that rested upon his son's shoulders? Lucas stepped into the crisp morning air, each breath filling him with a blend of exhilaration and apprehension. The hospital loomed ahead, an imposing structure that symbolized both opportunity and dread. As he approached the entrance, he ran through the carefully curated words he had rehearsed, but doubt crept in unexpectedly, tangling with his resolve. Was it naive to think he could convince Dr. Thompson to consider Emma's needs over his own? He paused at a bench to steady his nerves, feeling the weight of his plan settle heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a confrontation with a man who held the power to dictate Emma's future. Deep down, Lucas acknowledged a burgeoning frustration. Too often their lives were dictated by other people's fears. The notion sent a wave of determination coursing through him. If he approached this with genuine concern and respect for Dr. Thompson's position, perhaps he could shift the narrative. Once inside the hospital, Lucas felt the hurried energy of hospital staff racing past him. He spotted a nurse and mustered the courage to ask for directions to Dr. Thompson's office. The nurse's smile was warm but fleeting, a reminder of the human connection he craved in a world that had felt so isolating. As he walked through the sterile corridors, he envisioned the dialogue he hoped to foster, not just with the doctor, but within himself. When he finally stood outside the doctor's office, he took a moment to collect his thoughts. The faint sound of medical equipment buzzing in the background intensified his heartbeat. Perhaps this was a pivotal moment, not only for Emma, but for him as well. He couldn't afford to back down now. Too much had been invested in this effort. Raising his hand, he knocked gently, then opened the door when invited in. Dr. Thompson sat behind a polished mahogany desk, his face a canvas of fatigue and intensity, appearing more vulnerable than the brilliant physician who was often revered in the community. As their eyes met, Lucas could see a flicker of surprise. "Good morning, Dr. Thompson. I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, the words spilling forth in a rush. "Not at all. Please, come in. What can I do for you?" the doctor replied, though his guarded expression hinted at the tension situated between them. Taking a deep breath, Lucas launched into his prepared pitch about the volunteer initiative. He spoke passionately about the benefits of engaging students in medical ethics, but beneath the surface, he knew why he was really there. "I wanted to discuss Emma with you," he added, each word tumbling out more hesitantly than he had anticipated. The change in the doctor's demeanor was instantaneous. A flicker of defensiveness sparked in his eyes, but Lucas pressed on. "She deserves every chance for a future unbounded by fear or control. You know the stakes. I truly believe she could thrive away from that burden." Dr. Thompson shifted in his chair, torn between paternal instinct and professional oversight. "This is not an easy conversation. Emma's situation is complicated." "That complexity is exactly why I'm here," Lucas argued, his voice acquiring newfound strength. "Sometimes the best thing for someone is to create a path forward, even if it means stepping back ourselves." For a moment, silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by muffled conversations echoing from the hallway. Lucas's heart pounded in the quiet as he dared to hold the doctor's gaze, recognizing that this confrontation was about more than just Emma. It was about challenging an enduring pattern of fear and control that had pervaded both of their lives. Dr. Thompson's expression softened ever so slightly, exposing a vulnerability Lucas had not anticipated. Could he indeed see that perhaps Lucas was not just an outsider clamoring for attention, but ally equipped with an understanding that transcended his own? But just as hope brightened in his chest, Dr. Thompson's brow furrowed again, tension re-establishing itself. "Helping her would require a level of trust that I'm not sure we have. This is difficult for a father to navigate." Lucas felt his pulse quicken. He was standing at the precipice of something transformative, but now he knew he had to embrace confrontation, both with Dr. Thompson and within himself. "Can we build that trust then? Together?" As the ultimatum hung in the air, Lucas wondered whether he had the ability to alter the course of both of their lives. The room simmered with tension, and he knew he stood at a crossroads that could redefine everything. Would Dr. Thompson see the sense in Lucas's plea, or would he remain trapped within the confines of his own grief and fear? The silence deepened, thick with unresolved confrontations and unspoken hopes. For Lucas, this was not just a battle for Emma. It was a battle to grasp the emerging man within himself. And the outcome was still left undisplayed, swaying between possibility and uncertainty. The air thickened with unspoken words, the tension between Lucas and Dr. Thompson rippling in the atmosphere like an electric charge. Each moment stretched, heavy with the weight of their respective fears. Lucas had come to this meeting prepared to fight for Emma, yet he realized this confrontation might also serve as a reckoning for him. It was a chance to define who he was becoming and who he refused to be. "Look, I know you're trying to protect her," Lucas said, the intensity of his voice resonating through the sparse office. "But if we keep stifling her potential by holding on too tightly, we risk losing her completely." The urgency in his words fueled his conviction, pushing him to confront the doctor's hesitations head-on. Dr. Thompson opened his mouth to respond, but Lucas pressed on before he could formulate a counter-argument. "Emma needs empowerment, not just care. I've seen how she lights up when she exercises her agency, no matter how small. It's time to give her the reins, don't you think?" Dr. Thompson's eyes flickered with an emotion reminiscent of doubt, mingling with respect. Lucas could sense a shifting perspective. The doctor had begun to grasp that Lucas wasn't just an adversary. They shared a common goal, even if their paths to achieving it diverged. But the doctor's role as a guardian, woven with paternal threads, complicated matters further, creating a web of conflicting loyalties that Lucas had only begun to understand. "Trust," Dr. Thompson said finally, his voice low and contemplative, echoing a sentiment Lucas had raised. "It's a fragile thing. You can't just build it on words. It has to be earned." Lucas felt the gravity of that truth. Trust wasn't something that could be conjured in an instant. It required consistent actions over time. "I'm willing to earn it," he replied, conviction surging within him. "I'll prove to you that I'm invested in Emma's well-being." Before the doctor could respond, Lucas's mind raced, contemplating how best to demonstrate his commitment. An idea took root. "What if I arrange for an interactive workshop where Emma can participate? In front of you, she can show you her progress. It can be a safe space for us to all see how far she's come and where she wants to go." Dr. Thompson stared at him, weighing the proposal. Lucas's heart raced. Was he being too impulsive? An opportunity awaited, but could he execute it effectively? The stakes felt insurmountable, but the thought of abandoning Emma's chance drove him forward. "I understand the risks," he continued, pushing against the uncertainty brewing within. "She deserves that opportunity, and so do we. That way we can build a dialogue instead of merely debating over the table." Dr. Thompson's expression shifted subtly, revealing the internal conflict swirling behind his solemnity. Without response, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze drifting to the window, absorbed in thought. The stillness amplified the pulse of Lucas's determination, coaxing forth an inner strength he hadn't realized he possessed. The doctor exhaled slowly, as if coming to terms with the clash of emotions within him. "I'll consider it. But I need you to understand. This is not just about you or me. It's about Emma's journey." The air shifted. Something had aligned in their conversation. Lucas sensed the sliver of hope, yet he instinctively knew it was fragile. "I promise to uplift her, Dr. Thompson. She will always remain at the forefront of this decision." As their dialogue wound to a close, Lucas could feel the tectonic plates of his reality slowly shifting. Sharon's words from the other night echoed in his mind. "Every moment we hesitate, we deny ourselves the chance to change." He exited the office with a newfound resolve burning inside. Today had not only been a step for Emma, it had been a leap for him. But as Lucas walked down the hospital corridor, the sheen of optimism quickly dulled, gnawing at the edges of his heart. Would Dr. Thompson actually come through? And what if things didn't go as planned? The stark reality of uncertainty settled on his shoulders, piercing his resolve. How much risk was he truly willing to take, and more importantly, was he ready to face the backlash if things fell apart? His thoughts spiraled into the unknown as the scent of antiseptic wafted through the air, mingling with the echoes of doubt and determination. The moment of truth was approaching, heavy with the weight of expectations, and deep within Lucas, the battle between hesitance and courage was far from over. Lucas paced in his small apartment, the shadows of the late afternoon creeping across the floor like spectres. He had committed himself to this workshop idea, a bold move, and one that could either breathe life into Emma's aspirations or extinguish her hope altogether. Self-doubt clutched at him, whispering unsettling questions as he navigated through the intricate landscape of what was at stake. He envisioned the workshop in vivid detail, a room filled with warm lighting and colorful materials, where Emma would explore her abilities among peers and facilitators who would encourage her every step. Could he create a space that genuinely reflected the empowerment he longed to offer her? The thought thrilled him, yet petrified him in equal measure. He was entrusting him, still a relative outsider in Emma's life, with steering her future. Yet beneath the anxiety lurked a stirring sense of agency. Lucas recognized that for too long he had allowed his fears to dictate his interactions, avoiding conflicts, remaining in the sidelines. The idea of organizing the workshop illuminated something within him. He was capable of more than he had given himself credit for. Despite the gnawing uncertainty swirling inside him, he felt a surge of determination begin to unfurl, igniting sparks of creativity that had lain dormant. "All right," he mumbled to himself, straightening his posture as if gearing up for a showdown. "Time to make this happen." With each thought, his mindset began to shift. The fear transformed into fuel. If he truly wanted to facilitate a breakthrough for Emma, he had to demonstrate belief in the process and in himself. He reached for his phone and began drafting a message to Dr. Thompson, detailing a proposed framework for the workshop. His fingers hesitated over the screen, uncertainty lingering, but he steadied himself, recalling the doctor's words about trust and earned respect. To build that trust, he needed to take the first step. "Dear Dr. Thompson," he typed, thoughts racing, "I'm eager to discuss the interactive workshop further. Here's an outline of activities we could implement." As he expressed his vision, each keystroke felt like an act of defiance against the self-doubt that had gnawed at him for too long. He poured in ideas, from art therapy sessions fostering self-expression to physical activities that would challenge Emma while celebrating her journey. The act of creating this proposal was enthralling. It offered Lucas a glimpse into the possibilities that lay ahead, not just for Emma, but for himself as well. After sending the message, he sat back, momentarily stunned by the experience. For the first time in a long while, he had taken ownership of a decision that could ripple beyond his immediate comfort zone. However, even as he wrestled with the excitement, a new wave of anxiety crashed over him. What if Dr. Thompson rejected his ideas? What if Emma didn't embrace the challenges he was planning to introduce? His mind raced as insecurity wormed its way back in. But then, recalling his conversation with Sharon, he reminded himself that growth demanded stepping through uncertainty. The clock ticked into the evening. As shadows deepened, he took stock of the work ahead, sketching out preparations mentally. It was an astonishing pivot from the uncertainty he had felt not long ago. Now it felt like a call to action, a demand for growth he could no longer ignore. And yet, he couldn't shake the anxious feeling that crept closer, ready to ambush any sense of triumph he hoped to grasp. The reality that his fate, and potentially Emma's, was entwined in the reaction of another loomed large on his heart. Days passed, punctuated by an uncomfortable waiting game. Every minute felt like a beckoning reminder of the risks he had taken. He busied himself thinking up strategies for the workshop, but inevitably doubt seeped back in. What if his efforts were in vain? Just when he was starting to believe the anxiety was consuming him, his phone buzzed with an incoming message. Lucas's heart raced as he reached for it, his breath catching in his throat. It was Dr. Thompson's reply, and with it, the weight of their collaborative future hung in the balance. He opened the message, eyes scanning rapidly, heart pounding, fully aware that this moment would define the trajectory of not just the workshop, but his own journey. Would it bring them closer to trust, or would it unveil another layer of complications? Only one thing was certain: the moment had arrived. Lucas inhaled sharply as he read Dr. Thompson's response, his mind racing. The doctor had acknowledged Lucas's ideas with an enthusiastic endorsement, but wanted to make significant adjustments, insisting on a heavier focus on psychological resilience and emotional strengthening. He thought for a moment, was this what he had signed up for, that he would now have to reshape everything he envisioned? Adrenaline coursed through his veins in a mix of excitement and dread. The thought of incorporating deeper psychological elements shifted him from inspired to overwhelmed. Hadn't he just begun to grasp the basics of this adventure? Each line of Dr. Thompson's reply challenged Lucas to rethink not only the structure of the workshop, but his understanding of empowerment itself. Emotional strengthening. It sounded heavy, perhaps more complex than he was prepared for. As he mulled over how to integrate these requirements, doubt crept back into his thoughts. What am I even capable of in the realm of emotional support? He questioned. His mind flashed to his own struggles, the shadows of his past that had shaped him into an indecisive adult reluctant to take risks. Still, he recalled Sharon's voice, clear and resonant. "You are more than you think. Don't underestimate your adaptability." Her words hung in the air like a promise, reminding Lucas of the motivation to foster growth in others while battling his inner demons. He placed his phone down and strode to the window, letting the waning sunlight bathe him in warm glow, the lamplight eddying around his small living space. He needed a plan, a method to tackle this assignment that felt far more daunting now. How would he articulate these emotional frameworks to Emma? Could he genuinely create a space where vulnerability was not just welcomed, but embraced? His heart raced with urgency. He had no time to waste. This workshop could be a turning point, not only in Emma's journey, but perhaps in his own as well. Igniting a fresh sense of purpose, Lucas grabbed a blank notepad and began jotting down ideas, unearthing how he truly felt about emotional resilience. He sketched visions of activities focused on storytelling, allowing each participant to share their vulnerabilities and triumphs. But when he tried to map out how to tackle the complex layers of emotional healing, a fresh wave of anxiety washed over him, and he hesitated. Could he really take on the mantle of guiding others through their emotional turmoil? The fear of failing loomed like a dark cloud. He drummed his fingers against the page, grappling with self-doubt. Nevertheless, something stirred in the depths of his mind. He had faced silence in his past, isolation that had felt unbreakable. Maybe he could draw from those experiences, not perfectly, but with authenticity. He willed himself to write, digging deeper. With every word, Lucas began to validate his own voice. Sketching out strategies, he recognized that he wasn't just a guide for Emma, but a participant in his own growth. Yes, he was still grappling with insecurities, but wasn't that what made the journey worthwhile? Compelled by an urgency to embrace discomfort, Lucas poured everything onto the page. The realization that vulnerability could lead to empowerment, not just for Emma, but for him too. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the shadows of doubt that had once draped over him began to recede. Just as he was finally feeling a surge of clarity, his phone buzzed again, disrupting the quiet tension he was cultivating. A message from Emma blinked on the screen, asking if they could talk soon about the workshop. Lucas stared at the message, feeling the emotional stakes rise. This could be the moment that defined how far he was willing to step into the unknown. Was he ready to embrace the challenge, not just to advocate for Emma, but to also face the very uncertainties that had haunted him? The time had come to decide. Would he let fear tie him down, or would he rise to the occasion and own both his and Emma's narrative? The evening air held a mixture of anticipation and trepidation as Lucas prepared to meet Emma. He had taken steps to reframe the workshop, committing to an approach that not only empowered her, but extended that power to himself as well. The journey had begun with a mere spark of inspiration, but it was evolving into something profound, a mutual exploration of resilience and growth. As he stepped into the cafe where they agreed to meet, his heart raced with an amalgamation of nerves and excitement. Emma was already seated, her wheelchair pushed towards a cozy corner, adorned with soft lighting. This moment felt significant. Both were standing at the threshold of new possibilities, anchored in their respective battles against societal expectations. "Hey, Lucas," she greeted, with a tentative smile that ignited a warmth within him. "Hi, Emma. Thanks for meeting with me. I wanted to share some ideas about the workshop," he started, feeling the weight of his intentions pressed into every word. Her interest piqued. "I'm really excited. I've been thinking about it a lot. What do you have in mind?" Lucas leaned forward, the flicker of confidence igniting as he laid out the framework he had drafted, emphasizing participation, community, and emotional strength. "I believe we can create an environment that encourages us not just to learn, but to share our stories, our struggles. I want you to feel like you're not alone in this." As he spoke, he saw Emma's eyes brighten, reflecting a burgeoning sense of hope. For the first time since their friendship began, he felt a bond deepening, a recognition that they were both navigating the complexities of their realities, each fighting their own battles. At the mention of storytelling, Emma's demeanor transformed. "I love that idea. Sharing stories could really help. I need that kind of space. I want to connect with others who feel stuck like I do." Her response struck a chord within him, a confirmation that they were on the verge of something impactful. They could become vessels of change, bridging gaps within themselves and each other. The doubts that had loomed over him only a few days prior melted away, replaced by the solid footing of purpose. "And in the process, I'll have your back," he added, a realization dawning upon him. Lucas understood that his commitment extended beyond merely advocating for Emma. His ability to guide was inextricably linked to his willingness to confront the challenges bequeathed by his past. "Together, we can build trust," Emma declared, her voice emboldened by conviction. "And not just for ourselves. Other people need to know it's okay to be vulnerable." The magnitude of their discussion settled in like a warm embrace. Lucas recognized that both he and Emma shared ever more than their physical positions. They were united in their quest for agency and freedom. "Every moment we hesitate, we deny ourselves the chance to change," he echoed, recalling Sharon's words. It felt integral to honor that sentiment as a foundational tenet for what lay ahead. As they concluded their discussion, Emma's gratitude poured forth, infusing Lucas with a sense of purpose he had long yearned for. "I can't believe you would do all this for me. You're not just a friend, you're a true ally." In this acknowledgement lay the crystallization of his transformation. He had transcended from a homeless boy, grappling with mere survival, to a steadfast advocate capable of generating real change. Inspired by what they had created together, Lucas invited Emma to harness her strengths before the workshop. Together, they crafted personal affirmations, hopes, and dreams, a profound exercise that allowed both to reflect on their growth and the impact they aimed to foster. Days morphed into a week filled with preparation, each moment drawing them closer together. Lucas marveled at how Emma's courage inspired him to shed his own fears. She had opened a portal through which he could explore his identity. No longer just a boy from the streets, he was becoming a catalyst for change. Finally, on the day of the workshop, Lucas and Emma stood side by side at the entrance, watching participants gather, a diverse group comprised of individuals who had confronted their own hardships. An air of anticipation buzzed as those who had previously felt silenced found their way into an environment that celebrated vulnerability and courage. As their eyes met, Lucas felt a surge of confidence. They were both budding leaders in a world that had often cast aside their voices. The workshop blossomed into an interactive experience, with stories and shared laughter, blossoming into connections that transcended their individual struggles. At that moment, Lucas understood what he had truly accomplished. He had proven not just his competence, but solidified his position as a trusted advocate for Emma, and most importantly, a champion of his own transformation. In facing the walls that once imprisoned him, he had emerged as a figure of resilience rooted in compassion. With each heartfelt exchange during the workshop, Lucas felt the profound satisfaction of purpose, having laid bare the threads that connected each participant. The weight of their victories mirrored the weight he had carried, but now it transformed into a lightness that welcomed growth and possibility. As the workshop concluded, gratitude buzzed in the air. Emma's radiant smile mirrored the joy in his heart. They had not just created a space for others, they had forged a renewed bond, a commitment to grow as individuals and allies. In that moment of triumph, Lucas reaffirmed his belief in not just resilience, but in the transformative power emanating from deep connections. He surpassed the limits of his circumstances and achieved a fulfillment that resonated with his spirit. Lucas stepped outside the hospital into a new reality, one where he held not just hope, but recognition of his capacity to navigate complexities with poise and strength. Transformation woven with steadfast purpose defined him now. He looked toward the horizon with the belief that the challenges ahead would shape him even further. Alone or alongside Emma, a remarkable journey awaited, one paved with opportunities to craft, conquer, and share. Not just for Emma, but for himself, for they both deserve to rise. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel to ensure you don't miss out on more exclusive emotional stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for powerful narratives like this one. Comment your reactions and theories about this unforgettable ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and witness the extraordinary journey of overcoming adversity. Don't wait even one more second to share. Every moment counts.